This is Duke University.
Global trade and environmental justice.
Human rights issues are still.
The term Ubuntu.
The Alien and Sedition Acts.
Is making inferential discovery.
The importance of an archive.
The John Hope Franklin Center.
Well, thank you very much for that very kind welcome and introduction. And so, Your Excellency, thank you very much for agreeing to take part in this event. It's a real pleasure for me to be involved with the program and to be kicking off this series, as it were. And I'd just like to say a few words before I get to my remarks, which are actually not 30 to 40 minutes, but 25 maybe, so you can relax a little bit. But I would especially like to draw attention to the important collaborations between the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and Duke University in the areas of Middle Eastern and Islamic studies. This has been an incredibly fruitful collaboration. There are now, as Leo tells me, over 200 students in Arabic at Duke. We have over 250 in Arabic at UNC. This year has been especially interesting for some new developments. Our Consortium for Middle East Studies at Duke University and UNC Chapel Hill has been extremely successful, and this fall, Miriam Cook and I taught the first ever graduate seminar for Middle East Studies. We had 23 graduate students in the seminar. We feel it's an extremely effective way to get our joint Middle East graduate certificate going. We have students from many different disciplines. So this has been a great success, and we're also very excited about the Carnegie program on transcultural Islam, which is based at Duke. UNC and Oxford University are partners in that, and we will be working to develop an international network of scholars in Islamic studies. So these are some of the activities that are going on that are so encouraging, and I'm really happy to be a part of that. Now let me turn to my topic, which is the significance of Arabic language and literature for world civilization. What has been the cultural significance of Arabic language and literature for the world? Obviously, Arabic is central for language and literature in countries where Arabic is the dominant language. And Arabic also has a unique role for Muslims worldwide due to the religious importance of the Quran. But in this age of globalization, how can we understand the role of Arabic language and literature as it relates to the rest of the world? This is an important question because, as Sir Hamilton Gibb remarked many years ago, classical Arabic literature is the enduring monument of a civilization, not of a people. In other words, the Arabic language is not the exclusive property of the people known today as the Arabs, nor indeed is it the exclusive property of Muslims. It is instead a civilization's legacy for the world. In these remarks, I'll offer a brief commentary on aspects of Arabic language and literature that go beyond the standard curriculum of Islamic culture to embrace a global and cosmopolitan perspective. According to some estimates, in the year 2000, there were roughly 220 million native speakers of Arabic, but as many as 450 million who could be counted as Arabic speakers to some degree when one includes non-Arabs who have learned the language. In addition, Arabic is the language of religious practice for perhaps 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. Arabic literature is the repository of a vast number of literary compositions covering all fields of culture, religion, history, and science. Arabic is considered a West Semitic language, and it belongs to the family of languages with alphabetic scripts such as Hebrew, Aramaic, and Ethiopic that all ultimately descend from ancient Phoenician. Old written forms of the Arabic language are found in rock inscriptions throughout the Arabian Peninsula and as far north as Syria, employing several different scripts ultimately deriving from South Arabia. Arabic speakers also used the Nabatean script from the 2nd century BCE, notably in the city of Petra in modern Jordan, and that became the basis for the distinctive Arabic script that emerged in Syria and northwest Arabia in the 6th century of the Common Era, sometimes in multilingual inscriptions that included Greek or Syriac. The two major monuments of early Arabic literature are undoubtedly pre-Islamic poetry and the Quran, which was delivered during the career of the Prophet Muhammad, roughly 610 to 632 of the Common Era. A tremendous shift in ethical and religious consciousness separates these two textual sources. On one hand, the odes, the qasidas, of the pre-Islamic poets were formidable creations that summarized and expressed the joys and sorrows of Arab society during the time of paganism. It is the poet who stands at the center of this structure, using the conventions of verse and the story of his life to comment on the limits that frame human existence. On the other hand, the Quran, framed as a divine revelation to a human messenger, recounted the tragic history of humanity and its failure to heed the warnings delivered by the prophets. It called upon its audience to repent and rely only on God. Despite the dramatic differences between the perspectives of pre-Islamic poetry and the Quran, there is a sense in which the qasidas function as a kind of classical literature for Arabic, in which the Quran both abrogates the poetry of paganism, while it also fulfills and continues the aesthetic space that the qasida had defined. The subsequent development of Arabic literature during the Islamic era looks back both to the creations of the poets and to the Quran as literary models, although the Quran obviously has had a much wider impact through the daily religious practice of Muslims. From its birthplace in the Arabian Peninsula, Arabic spread through the early empire of the Caliphate. The adoption of Arabic as the official language of governance was decreed by the Caliph Abd al-Malik in the year 691. Before that year, the bureaucratic officials employed by the early Islamic empire had continued to use the local languages of administration, Greek, Syriac, Persian, for the collection of taxes and local affairs. Making Arabic the standard language of administration and coinage required many non-Arabs and non-Muslims to learn Arabic in order to function in the new political and cultural environment. The new prominence of Arabic as an administrative language created the conditions for a cultural flowering of Arabic as a literary tradition among a wide range of peoples. The vast extent of the empire of the Caliphate required civil servants to combine a knowledge of literary Arabic with a wide range of subjects. As Marshall Hodgson has observed concerning Arabic literary culture, or adab, knowledge of fiqh, Islamic law, was practical both for a private individual and for a state clerk, for it was the officially recognized basis of social order. Knowledge of it also implied piety. At the same time, he should have a wider acquaintance with history and geography. He should know the famous tales and sayings to which allusions might be made. Naturally, he should be familiar especially with courtly precedents. Finally, he should command something of the natural sciences. But always, he should have a good knowledge of poetry. And in practice, this meant the knowledge of Persian historical traditions as well as biblical narratives, combined with selections from the knowledge of the Greeks. And the cosmopolitan extent of this culture can be gauged from such vast literary productions as the Book of Songs, the Kitab al-Aghani, which tells of the poets, singers, and musicians who flourished during the early years of the Caliphate. The remarkable range of subjects available in Arabic at the end of the 10th century can be judged by the Fihrist, or index, of al-Nadim, a comprehensive bookseller's list of all the titles that could be found in Baghdad at that time. Arranged by subject in 10 different categories and available in a 2-volume translation. It's a very extensive work. This catalog includes writings on scriptural religions, Jewish, Christian, and Islamic, grammar and philology, history and biography, poetry, theology, law and hadith, as well as secular intellectual topics such as philosophy and the sciences, legends and magic, the religions of India and China, and alchemy. From this broad catalog, one gets a sense of the cosmopolitan perspective available to those who were educated in Arabic in the classical age. The spread of Arabic language and literature among the non-Arabs was thus a natural byproduct of the Arab conquests. The need to master Arabic literature was obvious to anyone who hoped to achieve social or political prominence. An interesting example of this tendency is the biographical account of the life of the philosopher Ibn Sina, or Avicenna, who died in 1040. where we learn that despite his remarkable accomplishments in science and philosophy, this Persian intellectual was once criticized by an Arab scholar for his lack of knowledge of Arabic grammar and philology. In response, Ibn Sina spent 3 years studying Arabic literature, and in the end, he composed several qasidas and epistles, risalas, in the most complicated style of the great masters, Ibn al-Hamid, al-Sahib, and Nasabi. He bound these writings into a book and made it look very old. And then he showed it to his Arab critic, pretending that he had found it in the desert while hunting. The Arab scholar was astounded at the difficult words and compositions in this volume, which rivaled the writings of the early masters of Arabic. He ended up apologizing to Ibn Sina when he realized that the philosopher had attained a superior knowledge of Arabic literature. This story belongs to the well-established tradition of ethnic contestation known as the Shu'ubiyya, which includes numerous literary efforts to demonstrate the virtues of the non-Arab peoples, called in Arabic sha'ab in the singular or shu'ub in the plural. These writings demonstrated the superiority of the non-Arabic peoples over the Arabs by using the medium of classical Arabic. It is no secret that there were many non-Arabs who became among the most prominent scholars of all the different sciences found in Arabic. This phenomenon is perhaps explainable by the fact that the non-Arabs had to make extraordinary efforts in order to master literary Arabic when it was not their mother tongue. Thus, in history as well as in Quran commentary, there is perhaps no more famous name than the Persian scholar at-Tabari, whose monumental works are landmarks of scholarship in those fields. The development of Islamic law was distinguished by the work of al-Marghanani, theology by al-Maturidi, the study of prophetic sayings or hadith by al-Bukhari, and Arabic grammar, of course, by Sibawayh. In other words, all these fields benefited from the contributions of non-Arabs to perhaps a greater distinction than the Arabs. It is perhaps less widely known that non-Muslim religious groups had an extensive Arabic literature as well. There is much to be learned from the massive German history of Christian Arabic literature that was compiled by the scholar Georg Graf over 50 years ago. This 5-volume work was simply a listing of titles, more or less. It describes the Arabic translations of the Bible and of the writings of the Greek, Syriac, and Coptic church fathers, as well as hundreds of Arabic writings by scholars of the different Christian churches of the East, Melkites, Maronites, Nestorians, Jacobites, and Copts, up to the end of the 19th century. Likewise, there has been over the centuries an extensive literary production in Arabic by Arabic-speaking Jews. This includes the remarkable development of Judeo-Arabic literature, which was classical Arabic written in the Hebrew script. Major works in this category include the biblical commentary by the Baghdadian scholar Saadia Gaon, as well as the monumental philosophical treatise, The Guide to the Perplexed, by the Andalusian thinker Moses Maimonides, which was not printed in Arabic script until the 1950s, when a Turkish scholar undertook the edition. Judeo-Arabic was also the medium chosen by another Andalusian writer, Judah Halevi, in his 12th century defense of Judaism, known as Al-Khuzari. In many respects, this was another example of the Shu'ubiyya movement that used the Arabic language to proclaim the supremacy of the non-Arab peoples. One of the means by which the Arabic language became so extensive in its coverage of different cultures and sciences was undoubtedly the massive translation movement, which beginning around 800 CE transmitted a remarkable amount of scientific and philosophical literature from Greek into Arabic. This movement, which was largely facilitated by highly educated Syriac Christians, frequently involved an initial translation from Greek into Syriac, followed by another translation from Syriac into Arabic. It was only somewhat later that scholars such as the Christian physician Hunayn ibn Ishaq mastered Greek sufficiently to translate scientific and medical works directly into Arabic. The curriculum of Greek sciences that entered Arabic included the medical works of Galen and Hippocrates, the mathematics of Euclid, the logic, physics, and metaphysics of Aristotle. Prominent translators also included the Sabian pagan Thabit ibn Qurra, renowned for his mathematical studies. He was one of a number of Hellenistic pagans from the city of Haran in Syria who avoided theological criticism by claiming to be the monotheistic Sabians mentioned in the Quran. Later on, Andalusian scholars translated the Arabic philosophical writings of Aristotle and Ibn Rushd into Latin at a time when the writings of the Greek philosophers were mostly unavailable in Europe. Thus it was that Christian theologians such as St. Thomas Aquinas studied Aristotle and his Arabic commentator Ibn Rushd in versions that were made available from Arabic sources. In addition, there were astronomical and medical texts translated into Arabic from Indian languages, presumably Sanskrit, including the famous astronomical tables known as the Zij Hind and other works. Outside of the scientific realm, one of the most popular compositions in the history of world literature, the collection of Indian stories known as the Panchatantra, was translated into Arabic from the Middle Persian version by the Abbasid minister Ibn al-Muqaffa under the title Kalila wa Dimna. This Arabic work was in turn translated into almost all of the world's languages, and a dozen stories from this tradition found their way into the Aesop's Fables published in English by the pioneering English printer William Caxton in 1484. On the level of geography, Arabic became the medium for describing the world much more comprehensively than was possible in other languages before the European expansion of the 16th century. Building on the knowledge of Greek scientists like Ptolemy, Arab geographers combined personal travel research with administrative reports to gain much more extensive knowledge of the regions of the world than their predecessors. Here I'll just mention a couple of examples out of many. As far as Northern Europe was concerned, there is the example of Ibn Fadlan, who in 921 led an embassy from the Abbasid Caliph al-Muqtadir to the Bulgar king on the Volga River in southern Russia. His Arabic travel narrative, rediscovered in the 20th century from a manuscript in Iran, describes his travels through Central Asia and his encounters with Nordic peoples that were evidently Vikings. And this travel account has appeared in a Hollywood version in the 1999 film The 13th Warrior. On a more extensive level, the famous Rihla, or travel narrative of Ibn Battuta from the 14th century, is the Arabic account of his travels from Morocco to China and back, as well as his visits to Spain and West Africa. This account was actually composed by a literary scholar named Abu Juzay, to whom Ibn Battuta dictated his recollections, and it includes passages which seem to have been copied from the writings of other travelers such as Ibn Jubayr. And there are questions about whether he actually visited all the places that he mentioned in his travels. Nevertheless, Ibn Battuta's travel narrative is a remarkably detailed and richly informative work that provides important information about the holy places of Mecca and Medina, Cairo under the Mamluks, Anatolia at the time of the rise of the Ottomans, Delhi under the Tughlaq dynasty, the Maldives, Sri Lanka, Bengal, Malacca, and Guangzhou in China. Having traveled far more extensively than the European traveler Marco Polo, Ibn Battuta was able to take advantage of his status as a scholar of Islamic law to find employment and patronage practically everywhere he went. He took advantage of the openness of the Eurasian continent after the Mongol conquests, and the result was an unmatched depiction of a wide range of Muslim and non-Muslim societies across the world. Arabic also became a medium by which Arabic scholars studied the cultures and religions of other peoples of the world. One of the most remarkable examples is the scholar al-Biruni, who died in 1048. He studied Sanskrit texts on science and religion while in the service of the Turkish conqueror Mahmud of Ghazna. Al-Biruni's study of Indian religion and culture seems to have been pretty much forgotten until his great work on India was rediscovered by European Orientalists in the 19th century. I say that because there's only one manuscript that survives of his big work on India. Al-Biruni is of interest not because he extended a universalizing recognition to Indian religions as such, but because of his typical method of using categories of Islamic thought as templates for understanding the Indian data. Al-Biruni translated a number of Sanskrit works into Arabic, including selections from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita in connection with his encyclopedic treatise on India. Although authors of Arabic books on sects and heresies, such as Shahrastani, had generally devoted a section or a few pages to the religions of India, no other Arabic writer followed in al-Biruni's footsteps as a specialist on Indian religion and philosophy. His translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras was based on a combination of the original text plus a commentary that is still not identified, all rephrased by al-Biruni into a question and answer format. By the way, I was just surprised recently to discover that a Yemeni scholar has recently published a new translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras into Arabic, although he did it from an English version. Like the translators of the pre-Islamic texts into the pre-Islamic Greek texts into Arabic, al-Biruni rendered the terms from Sanskrit, like the word for gods, deva, with the Arabic term for angels, malaika, or spiritual entities, ruhaniyat. He was moreover convinced on a deep level that Sanskrit texts were saturated with recognizable philosophical doctrines of reincarnation and union with God, which required comparative treatment. As he remarked, for this reason, the Indian's talk, when it is heard, has a flavor composed of the beliefs of the ancient Greeks, of the Christian sects, and of the Sufi leaders. Consequently, al-Biruni made deliberate and selective use of terms derived from Greek philosophy, Islamic heresiography, and Sufism to render the Sanskrit technical terms of yoga. Arabic continued to be an important language for the culture of India for centuries. For a survey of Islamic learning in South Asia in the 18th century, it is hard to improve upon the choral rosary of Indian traditions, a composite work by Ghulam Ali Azad Bilgrami, written in separately 4 parts and combined later together. The first part is devoted to the statements of the Prophet Muhammad in Hadith regarding the sanctity of India as the place where Adam landed on earth after his expulsion from paradise. This is a very big topic in all the early Hadith. The second part is a biographical dictionary containing accounts of 45 Indian Muslim scholars who wrote in Arabic, ranging from the 8th century to the author's own day in the 18th century. The third and fourth parts are concerned with the rhetoric and the categories of lovers found in Indian literature, actually Hindi literature, illustrated in part by Arabic verses of the author's own composition. This work simultaneously finds a special place for India in the cosmology of Islam, while at the same time connecting the culture of India to Arabic literature through a kind of intertextual commentary. And if we return to the notion of civilization itself, there is probably no greater name in pre-modern times than that of the North African scholar Ibn Khaldun in terms of the quest to understand the forces that govern the rise and fall of human societies and empires. Ibn Khaldun was a historian, but he wrote his famous introduction to history, Al-Muqaddimah, as a philosophical analysis of society in terms of the interplay between sedentary urban life and pastoral nomadism. The range of examples that Ibn Khaldun used for his study included the ancient Greeks, Romans, Persians, and the Hebrews, and he paid special attention to the nomadic peoples, particularly the Arabs, the Berbers, the Mongols, and the Turks. His observation about the role of religion in fostering group feeling, or asabiya, have earned him the reputation of being the first sociologist. It's important to note that Ibn Khaldun was not primarily attempting to focus on an exclusively Islamic civilization. His work strove for universal application. He drew upon the rational categories of Greek science and philosophy in his understanding of prophecy and religion, and his Arabic writings had a major impact on Ottoman thinkers of the 18th century and have reached new audiences in the 19th and 20th centuries through scholarly French and English translation. Obviously, there is much more that could be said about the significance of Arabic language and literature for many different subjects. This is an immense field, and it has only been touched by such massive surveys as Karl Brockelmann's 5-volume German history of Arabic literature, or Fuat Sezgin's more comprehensive German survey of Arabic literature, which in 9 volumes only goes up to the year 1038. One of the things you learn, by the way, from these publications is a significant proportion, perhaps a significant majority of Arabic writings have never been printed in any form, but are still in manuscript. So there are lots of projects waiting to be done. And I will not even attempt to say anything significant about the rise of modern Arabic literature with new forms of literary expression, such as free verse, the novel, and the drama, which is worthy of many more lectures in itself. So I will simply conclude with a couple of examples to indicate new possibilities, new cultural possibilities created by the experience of globalization from the early colonial era to the present regarding the role of Arabic in the United States of America. In one of these cases, Arabic serves to document the important presence of Islam in America through the African Muslims who were enslaved and brought to North America. One such example was Omar ibn Sayyid, who died in 1864. He was born in the region of Senegal and sold into slavery in 1807. He ended up spending his life as a slave in North Carolina, and he claims our attention because he was a Muslim scholar. He wrote a short autobiography of Arabic in 1831 while he was enslaved in Bladen County in this state, as well as several other documents, including portions of the Quran. This surprising presence of Islam in early America is only known to us because of the Arabic learning that was displayed by this remarkable individual and a few others like him. Another important case is the famous Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran, whose career took him from Mount Lebanon to New York at an early age, where he received support from American art patrons for his painting and literary abilities. One of the most popular writers in English today, Gibran was also part of an important circle of New York Arabic poets in the 1920s, which included Mikhail Naimi. Thus, Arabic has become an American literary language. And from another point of view, there has also been a long series of visits to America by Arabs, a number of whom have recorded their observations in literary form. This tradition of Arabic writing about America has recently become the subject of an important book illustrating the connections between the U.S. and Arabic culture dating from the 17th century. In short, from its ancient origins, Arabic has become a language of major significance, one of the 6 official languages of the United Nations, an enduring cultural property in the global heritage of civilization. The study of teaching of Arabic language and literature is consequently a subject of central importance that should be a top priority for the curriculum of humanistic studies. And for that reason, I congratulate and praise our teachers and scholars of Arabic in all of these programs. So thank you very much.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.